Hello, welcome to another episode of Young and Driven Next Gen Changemakers. With me, your host, Violet Muchenu. It's been a minute since our last episode, but I am so excited for my guest today. I've been away for a while, but I had to come back with a big bang of a guest and super excited to get into conversation with Aceil Haddad, who is the founder of Map PR, an agency that specializes in communications in the built environment. And Asil is a good friend. She's a colleague and she's a supporter. She's a champion. She's all things I absolutely love in seeing in women who are making such an impact in communications, but also as a leader across the industry in construction. So welcome, Asil. Really excited to have you here. How are you today?
I'm really good. I'm bloody cold,
It is
but
freezing, isn't it?
it's that change in temperature where you just, it's such an English thing to start with, but I'll start with it. That drop in temperature where you're like, oh my goodness. Now I have to rethink my wardrobe. I need to getting disgusting. Where am I going to go for a walk? The sun's about to go down. Where have I got the lights on? Have I got the heating on? Uh,
Yeah,
it's one of those.
yeah. It is. It's pretty cold. Well, you're looking very autumnal, and I love it. And the background, everything is giving autumn and winter is here. You're winter ready. Listen, I'm really excited to. I'm really good. I'm really good. Excited to have the conversation with you. And yeah, you're one of my absolute favorite people, and I'm not just saying this to gas you up, but you're genuinely one of my absolute favorite people in the world because you are just one of those special people that I love because for lots of different reasons, but especially because you are just one of those people who always very authentic and shows up as authentically as possible. When we talk about authenticity, I always think of you. And also you're also just very bold. You say things out loud that most people are thinking in their heads and are just too afraid to say it. So I absolutely admire that. I wish I had that gumption, which I don't.
We can all do
So
it. We
because of
can all
that,
do it.
and this is why I love you. But yeah, listen, let's get into it. So I want to start with before we kind of talk about what you're doing now and some of the work that you do across the industry, and just a little bit about your personal story. But what is one thing that most people don't know about you that you wish they knew and why? So this could be like a personal thing or professional.
Mm.
What is a little tidbit inside information that we can know about our seal today?
That this was never the plan. I think that when I talk to people and I say I'm in communications, they are kind of like a little bit aghast because they're like, there are certain stereotypes to people in comms. I mean, we both grew up with like Ab Fab on the telly, and that's what we think of when we think of comms people. I had no idea that this career even existed. It was not my plan. I went to university and I studied urban studies, which is a mix of sort of geography, sociology, and sort of architectural design and how people live and how people live in the city. And that's what I thought I was going to be doing is being more on the construction side of things and planning cities and looking at spaces and how do we make them places that people want to be. That's where I thought I was going to be. And when I came out after doing my undergraduate degree, I, and then sadly my mum was ill, then I had a plan to go to the Netherlands and do my master's degree again in urban studies. I had to sort of change tacks, and when I was trying to look for a job, I applied for lots of different jobs, and I just could not break into the housing industry at all. And it was because I came out during the recession; things were really tough, and it was just by chance that somebody I had befriended, somebody who was, I think he was just north of 45 at the time, a man who worked at the Bank of England as well. It's like, have you ever thought about a career in comms? I was like, don't know what you're talking about. But he opened the doors and sort of, I suppose, led me on my path onto this thing that, I'm still trying to understand. So I think that's probably something that I like to tell people about myself because there is, I suppose, that and like another side to me, which is totally uncomsy.
Yeah. And isn't it great that it's when you have someone in your life that enables you to find your way sometimes when you don't quite know what you want to do or you have no idea about an industry, what's involved, and whether you have the right skill set. But also, I was particularly interested in the fact that you nearly moved to the Netherlands. I could totally see you living somewhere in the Netherlands. Can you speak Dutch?
No, I can't. I was speaking English. I suppose my link was it was an English course. I was not. I would try to learn Dutch, but probably awfully. But No, it was. I had a slight loose link to it. So my uncle, who was the first Arab professor, that sort of travelled around, um, he did a stint in Utrecht, which is which is where I was going to go. And he always told me that they taught in English, and I was like, well, maybe I'd do that and see see another world, And I
Oh,
was young, single. Why not?
yeah. Yeah. Love it. Amazing. Amazing. Take me back. So you're a founder now. Is your agency that you founded, I'm going to say about 4 years ago, thereabouts, if I'm correct me if I'm
Nearly
wrong.
5.
And how did you end up founding Map PR? What brought you to that moment? What happened before?
Yeah, so it's no real secret. But I was sacked when I was pregnant, nearly 9 years ago now, and I was 3.5 months pregnant when that happened, and then I went through sort of the legal back and forth, and that sort of completely changed the direction, I suppose, of my career. When that happened, I became a consultant, and I started being a freelance consultant when I was 5 months pregnant. Really, really thankful that I worked with some brilliant people who just took me on and just knew the circumstances, obviously, but could see that I was hungry, ambitious, and wanted more. And so that's where I sort of started my freelance career. And then I suppose the catalyst really for starting my own agency was during the pandemic. I felt entirely powerless, like so many people. And I'm like, I'm not medically trained, probably can never be because that's not how my brain works. And I thought, well, what can I do? And I had been furloughed along with many people, and I was like, well, now is when communications is so important. And
Mm.
having I had a backdrop of campaigning and comms, I was like, well, could just start a PR agency. So I had some support from Roxhill, um, and some other friends as well who sort of G'd me up and helped supported me. And we created the CIPR, which is community. God, maybe it's not that. Sorry.
I feel like it's communication something.
Who knew that 5 years? We set up a 3PR agency, and we within about 6 weeks we had 250 volunteers. We had
Wow.
over 128 different accounts, including working with the NHS. I had a bank of hugely successful comms experts, and people who needed help from like grassroots organisations where they were feeding the hospital staffs who were working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week under an immense pressure. These grassroots kitchens that started things up, working for things like the Salvation Army, the NHS, like I said, and just filling gaps where, people did have to stay at home and they had to concentrate on younger kids and making sure that they were educated, or they were having their own anxiety, or they were ill themselves or dealing with older people. But anyway, that experience just made me think, well, why don't I just start my own agency? Because it wasn't something I'd even thought of until that moment. And I thought, well, I might as well do that. And then, you know, based on my own experience and bring people in when I can. I work primarily with women. Obviously, I work with men too. And I bring people in on projects and,
No, no, don't come for us. Yeah, she works with women
yeah,
too.
I like men as well. There's nothing wrong with it. The whole ethos behind Matt, because Matt stands for Mums at the Top, which is something my friend
Ah,
made up for me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and obviously it's ironic because it's a man's name. And I just bring people in on projects,
Um,
who are doing other things, or have caring responsibilities, or they have passion projects that they want to pursue, but you've still got to keep the lights on. And that's really what I've done, and I bring people in when I can, when I need, and the ambition has always been to sort of grow from there. You know, economic constraints as they are, it's I've not quite got there. But that's next.
yeah, no, that's amazing. Because actually, one of your, or I guess maybe we can call this a strap line or your mission statement, should we say? I'm going to quote this so I don't get it wrong. It's basically Map PR is centered around inclusion and a culture that rejects presentism. What does that mean
Yeah.
in terms of practical terms, and why was that so important to you?
So before I started that, I was a consultant working with numerous different brands, and working in agencies, etc. And that strap line was really born out of an experience that I had in a global PR agency. I was lured in. There was lured in even, and there was a big carrot on the stick, and I was fighting for it. And it never liquidated. But somebody said in that organisation, they're like, well, I arrive at 7 and I leave at like 7 or 8, and I was like, yeah, but I see you on social media, so and I see you having chat and with people for hours about the most trivial things. I'm really sorry, but I don't give a shit that you're in 12 hours, 24 hours. If you're not working, what is the point? You know? And also going through my own experience, becoming my own consultant, I also could see in myself that my productivity was sky high. Having a child, and I went back to work when my kids were 6 months old. You know, I was had the constraints of childcare, I had the constraints of having to do everything else as well, and making sure that my world was functional. And so, if I had 2 hours, I could squeeze a day's worth of work in there. You know, and that's great, isn't it? We want people to be productive. We want people to be able to do the things that they need to do, and you know, I don't have to be in the office for you to think that I've done the work. As long as I've done my
Right.
tasks, that should
Right.
be good enough.
Yeah.
Um,
It's about the outputs really, the quality of the outputs rather than how you do it, right?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, for
Yeah.
example, an agency, you charge a day for to write a press release and get the edits done. You know, now some people it does take that whole day, but it also doesn't need to take the day.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's any less good. It just means that that person is more productive. They can get things across the line, and the client doesn't need to know. Although it's ring the beans now.
No, thank you. And what would you say surprised you the most about working for yourself? What's been a positive surprise and what's been something you weren't prepared for?
I think probably the most positive thing was realizing that I can do it. And I say this because I don't come from a family of affluence. I don't come from a family of serial entrepreneurs. And so having my own business, being able to pay my own bills is something I've always thought is hard work in a way. Do you know what I mean? But I've done it. And I look back at that and I think like, I've just moved into my house and I'm so proud of it. I look around and like, this is because I worked hard and I got here and no one has done anything for me. I've done it. I'm here, there's so much pride in just going, let's see what happens, and it starts to work, and then you can look at the fruits of your labor almost. This one being my house. Like it's it's phenomenal because this was never. I never thought that this would be possible.
Yeah. No. What is it that because a lot of people have dreams of working for themselves and, shift from the 9 to 5 kind of standard corporate job, which has lots of benefit in and of itself, but also, on the side that you've got perhaps another calling, shall we say, or another passion that you're not necessarily tapping into, and really living up to. But people are often, certainly some of the conversations that I have with my friends and people that I know, and also sometimes conversations that I've had with other founders is that it's that fear of kind of taking that jump or that leap of faith into the unknown. And oftentimes, a bit like you in some ways, it takes something drastic to happen in your life to push you and to step into that passion or that business that you wanted to start. But I also and it's a shame that sometimes that's what it takes, but sometimes that's what it needs to take as well. But on the other side of that, I do often, just because I like to balance conversation, I also don't always like when I hear conversations about, especially nowadays, I think online on social media, especially, where you hear people saying, "Oh, quit your 9 to 5 job and just go and do your passion project because I can do it. You can do it 6 months from now. I made this much money." Is that actually true? So, what are some of the tools that you know someone can have in place if they do have a dream and ambition they want to pursue as an entrepreneur, versus weighing up staying in your normal 9 to 5 corporate job?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost is I think there is a really toxic narrative around boss galling by about running this, and I think that it's really dangerous. So first of all, I think that you really need to challenge yourself, and it's like, who am I doing this for, and why am I doing it? Is this a passion that is a hobby, or is this a passion I can turn into work?
Yeah.
And I think that I find it really concerning because I see those things on Instagram and TikTok, and I think, fuck, like, don't do it. Like, it's lovely that you're making whatever you're making, but can you keep the lights on? And I mean, I suppose this also comes from like my own like my childhood trauma, right? In terms of, there were times where money was really really tight. I had grew up with some bailiffs at the door. I have grown up where I haven't been able to go on holidays because there was no money, or we've had to change our shopping habits because we've had to make 2 weeks 2 weeks worth of household expenditures stretch further. So I suppose I come with that with my own prejudice, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think for me also the other thing is people need to understand that the fundamentals of their finances. And that doesn't that sounds so much more grander than it is. It's like, but how much do you need to live on? Balance that and balance your passions and help feed yourself, but also feed yourself, quite literally. I do a lot of pro bono work, and lots of people are like, "Oh, how do you do that? How do you afford to do that?" And it's like, well, all of my corporate work funds it. You
Yeah.
know, I know what my minimum monthly income needs to be, and I save money when times are good, and I keep that in the bank. And so I know that if times get tough, or if I want to do something fun for a little bit, and can afford to do that and keep that balance going. And I think that's the uncomfortable truth, I think, really,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, because the reason why it's news, the reason why it is glamorous, is because it doesn't happen to everyone. It's not possible for everyone. And that's not me doing people down. It's just
Yeah.
that you've got to make a sensible, curated decision, and or realize that you need to make lifestyle changes if you want to do X or Y.
Yeah. And this is why I needed you in this conversation because you always say how it is.
I know, I know it's really unhelpful, and I hate sometimes being that person who says these things, but I also think, if for my own children or for myself as well, if somebody went, "Oh, just do your passion," like, yeah, great idea, lovely, but have you thought about the practicalities of it or the other impacts? And especially as women, you've got to think about that and how that's going to impact you.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, do you have the not only the sort of the practical tools in place, i.e., savings, can you pay the bills, all the things that you've talked about, but actually just intrinsically in yourself, can you see this through when stuff is rough and you're not
Yeah.
making any money? It's not all glitz and glam, isn't it? Really, founding your own business and running your own business. So,
And
yeah,
as much as you think you're the boss, you're also the admin assistant. And you've got to be able to cope with that.
that's yeah, yeah. So one of the things that I know, from the way that I know you, that you're very passionate about is diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So I want to shift gears a little bit. In your perspective, as somebody who obviously has worked in PR and comms for a very long time, what do you see currently is the state of PR and comms when we talk about inclusive leadership? So there's the perception versus the reality. What does that look like from where you're standing?
I think there's a lot of performance, and I don't see anything coming through. I just it's empty words. Yeah. It's a really tricky subject. I'm so passionate about diversity, and I try and what I try and get across is to people as well is it's not from a moral stance point. You know, of course, morally, I think that we should be have diverse teams. It's also from an economic stance point. Like, I have not walked in your shoes, so how can I sell you the shoes that you want? Because that's fundamentally what comms is. It's like selling things, sending the message. You know, something that lands okay for me will not land okay for you. And that's
Yeah.
because of your background and your history. So we need our teams to be diverse fundamentally for them to operate. And there is, since George Floyd sadly was killed, there has been this performative ambition to be diverse or like create programs, for people. And, let's give them a pat on the back, but then not give them any financial support or a job at the end of it. Well,
Yeah.
that's bullshit, isn't it? And I think people sort of 5 years down the line, people are calling it out. People can see it. And that's, for me, from a comms perspective, it's like, it's fundamentally a reputational crisis.
Right.
Well done. You created a problem for yourself by not addressing the fundamentals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love your honesty. And if you could think about some of the things that could change that you would like to see change, what would that maybe one thing that you would think would actually move the needle in inclusion, specifically on comms, what would that look like?
Well, I mean, I don't think there is one thing. I think that there are a myriad of things that need to be done. Sort of the first is supporting organisations like the Taylor Bennett Foundation, which is about getting diversity into communications practically and theoretically, and pushing the needle there. I think it's also, I think there needs to be some communications in and amongst itself in terms of like, why are we doing this? You know, and talking about that value add literally that I just explained is it's not about performance. It's about actually we're going to get a much better team by doing it, and also explaining why it is, because I think people are sort of deaf to that. So yeah, I don't think there is one thing. I think it's so many different things, but
Yeah.
it's just starting and also getting feedback from your own team, right? Because I think
Yeah.
that's the other missing piece is, you know, I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with somebody and diverse individual, and she had she said to me, "No one's ever told me that I need to network." And I was like,
Oh.
"What?" It's a small thing, but like, and she was like, "That's why I think I'm behind. I'm in my 50s. I should be here. I'm not." I'm like, "Yeah. Why didn't anyone tell you that this is what you or this is where you need to get to?"
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. There's not a silver bullet, isn't there? But I love what you said. Just start, start somewhere, right? But yeah, we've got a long way to go. But I really appreciate is having people like you in the conversation and advocating with all the work that you do. More of that, please. So I couldn't have a PR and comms expert on my podcast without asking about comms online. As you know, we live in a digital age. I wanted to ask you about, and the reason I asked this as well is because one of the things I particularly love about you is that you're very visible online, especially on spaces like LinkedIn, because obviously it's a very business focused platform. You're very visible, but you're also very good at showing up in what I consider to be a very authentic way, but you get the right balance of being really authentic and sharing content with purpose, sharing content with personality and character, but also you show parts of yourself as well to some extent, parts that you're comfortable with about your personal side of life as well. Like recently you've mentioned on LinkedIn that you just bought a new house, but I also know that you talk about other things as well. So how does one strike a really good balance? If you could give some advice really for somebody who maybe is not well versed in communications, writing, and all that sort of stuff with your sort of comms hat on,
Mm.
how does one strike a good balance of showing up online in a professional way, being visible, but also whilst being authentic, but without infringing on the personal life as well?
Uh, Crikey. That's a big thing. I think, the starting strategy is like, what is the point? What do you
Mm,
want to do? What are you trying to achieve? Why do you want to build a profile? What is it? Where is it going to get you? Who do you want to be? I mean, I haven't fully answered that. I know I'm saying this, um, but I suppose the reason why I do it is I want to show people about me so they can either get over their misconceptions or or do business with me, and or understand that I get it, and I get it through showcasing that I get it and having that discussion and communicating that. So I think there has to be a point, like many, and I hope people don't cringe too much at my content, but I sometimes
definitely,
find
definitely not. It's one of the highlights of my week.
I tell you what, on my Instagram, which is private, I'm sure my sister cringes at me singing "Pussy Palace" by Lily Allen. But anyway, I think yeah. So you need to have a reason for wanting to be visible. What is the reason?
Mm,
And I can't tell you that. You need to know that yourself. And then how do you deliver your comms? Is that, what is it you want to say? What is the where is your strength? Where is it you want to add value? Where do you want to add to the conversation? Is it relevant? No, a simple thing like, we all go to different events and all of this stuff. So why don't you think about what you have taken away from that, and then
mm,
use view there, and that's really interesting, and engage with people and ask people questions maybe that you haven't squared, or just to get engagement. So and then turning up as your authentic self. Yeah, I find this slightly sometimes problematic as well. What does that mean? What it doesn't mean is showing everyone everything. I think that's where you lose that authenticity. I think
mm.
you need to show things that are relevant, and relevant to the point that you're making.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really good advice. Have you ever had a moment where you overshared something? You thought, "Oh, crikey, probably shouldn't have shared that."
Well, I tell you what,
And what did you do?
my partner slapped me on the wrist. I was talking about finance, and he was like, "You're going to be so careful about that. You can't do that." And it was just simply, it was actually after the pandemic. The end of the year tax return came in, and there was no leeway on it, and I was like, "This is fucking ridiculous." We life has been hard. We've had to dip into our savings. This is difficult. Um, and I think it's important for people to know that it's difficult, and because so much positivity, and it's a little bit toxic. He thought it was a bit too much of an overshare, that's his
Yeah,
opinion.
I love the advice. You got a good one there.
Well,
Keeps
yeah,
it real
I
with
just
you.
told you the story. I just told you the story, so I didn't fully listen.
It keeps it real with you. Thinking about looking ahead, when you think about the future of comms, in the industry, more specifically thinking about next gen, what are you most excited about with the future of PR and communications when you think about the next generation that's coming up?
Yeah, I am most excited that we can all access comms. You've got a phone, I've got a phone, everyone's got a phone. So we can all create our own content, and I think that that's really exciting in terms of like developing that portfolio and that profile, and being able to demonstrate by doing. I'm a kinesthetic learner, so which means I learn by doing. And if I had, I mean, obviously we were around when there were phones. We grew up. But if I deliver blogs were a thing when I came out of university, but it wasn't really a thing. I didn't really know about it and didn't engage with it. But everyone has TikTok, everyone has Instagram. So you can do some communications, and you can develop this portfolio, engage with brands, and potentially get in there. And I find that really exciting, because I think for the first time, comms is more understood than Patsy and Ab Fab. So we have people come through. Yeah,
A really, really good point to make. Bringing it back to yourself, my final question before we get into our next segment, which I call screen time, for a little bit of fun. You've done so much in the industry for a very long time, and somebody that I would certainly look up to and I really admire, and you inspire me so much. And I know you do that for so many others in the industry. What legacy do you hope to leave behind?
that she wasn't shut up. And it does make me happy when people say that you just say what's on your mind. Yeah, I mean I do, and sometimes I get burnt feet for it. Definitely do. I I so rarely go, oh, I wish I said that. And we all have those regrets when we say, oh, I wish I said that. I don't really have that too often, which is a good and bad thing. When I I've got a long time left in the profession, like sort of 35 years potentially, because
Absolutely.
we're not going to be retiring until we're 70, 75. We've got a long time.
Yeah. Unless you win the lottery and you start living the soft life, I'll be joining you, of course.
I'll be honest, that's not a bit of me. We're doing something somewhere. But so yeah, somebody who's never shut up. but also somebody who sees the value of lending their comm skills for free to businesses and using their skills to enable and unlock campaigns and things that must happen. So, and I say this, one of the things that I am really proud of is, and I went through being sacked when I was pregnant. I came out the other end, and it was before the Me Too movement, and it was before all of our discussions really about maternity discrimination. And I found a blog online, Pregnant Then Screwed, and I said, look, let me help you with your comms. Let me rebuild myself as well. And it was completely pro bono, but it was financially one of the best things I've ever invested in myself, because I healed myself. I got it onto the government agenda, and any time when I hear people talk about childcare, when I hear people talk about flexible work, when I hear people talk about maternity discrimination, it brings me so much joy, because I'm like, that is the legacy, because it's shit things that have happened to me, that happen to 75,000 women a year when they're discriminated, and we can't ignore it anymore. We talk about it, you know. That's that's phenomenal.
What a profound note to end on. I still absolutely loved this conversation. And as I said at the start of this episode, one of the things that I do really admire about you is your ability to just show up as yourself, and keep doing that. We need more of this in comms. We need more of this in the world, and yeah, keep being you. And we absolutely love you for it. Now, before I let you go, have your phone ready, and we're going to do a
Yes,
quick fire round of a segment that I like to call screen time. So let me know when you're good to go.
it's in my settings, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what is your average daily screen time and what do you think it says about you?
Um, so I can't find it. Oh, here we are. Okay, so my average screen time today's been a good day. Let me just look for on averages.
I love this
Sorry.
question because it's always very revealing and surprising to people how much time they spend on their phones, or not so much, actually.
So I spend on average 4 hours a day on my phone.
But what do you think that says about you?
I think that I look at that and I think, I sleep for about 10 hours a day. So I've got 14 hours left, and the majority of that I'm on my phone. I find that terrifying. When I look at it, I think, shit, I need to be off my phone.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's probably one of the little ones I've had. So you're doing right. Whatever you're doing, keep doing. And the next one I've had is, what app do you spend the most time on and why?
So I emails is quite high up there,
Hmm.
but other things are WhatsApp, Instagram, and Vinted.
Tell me more about Vinted.
I love Vinted. I'm massively into secondhand clothing. I have been
Yeah.
since since I started my first job and I was on 18 grand a year. I had no money, so I would buy pretty much all my clothes from charity shops, car boots, thrift shops, all of this jazz. Um, I would love to say it is purely sustainable, but it's not.
Mhm.
It's financial.
Yeah.
I cannot bring myself to spend 30, 40, 50, even 100 quid on an item of clothing.
Mhm.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I shop a lot on Vinted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
No, I
start
like that.
myself.
I like that.
And my new thing is selling the money. So I'm not spending any more money. I sell to spend.
I like it. Very thrifty. How many unread notifications do you have on your phone right now? So that could be on your WhatsApp or email or Instagram, maybe, because that's also another app that you spend a good amount of time on.
Okay. So unread, I've got 9 unreads.
Well, that's pretty good. Is that on WhatsApp, or is that on, what
That's
platform
on
is that
WhatsApp.
on? Oh, okay. Yeah. Is that quite normal for you to have that amount, or do you have usually more or less?
That is fairly anxiety inducing, I'll be honest. You meet people and they've got thousands of unread emails. That I can't do it. So
Yeah.
we've been on this call for an hour, and I have got 8 unread emails.
Heart
I don't know.
palpitations.
Yeah, I'm like, now I'm behind on emails as well. So, this is terrible. It's not good. Not good news.
Yeah, no, fair enough. You're very organized by the sounds of it. And then what's the last thing that you wrote in your notes app? Do you write stuff in your notes app? And what was it and why?
I mean, I feel like I've teed this one up really well. So I was in Leeds this week, talking about why we need more northern leaders in Westminster. So, I look very good here. So my notes are from a professor called Professor Kieran Trehan. And she said, I'm tired of the moral and social case. I want to talk about the economical benefits of equality. And then she said, so we need to stop talking about supporting women, but put the right systems in place to enable them. And this is the strategic imperative for change. So it was very much along my lines, but
Yeah.
this woman is phenomenal. And yeah, complete girl crush.
So I really like that. My final question, and I'll let you go, is if you could have one super interesting person in your phone contacts that you don't have now, who would that be? And that could be anybody. It could be somebody who works in PR and comms. It could be, yeah, and why this person? Like you can have them on
Um,
speed dial as like in your inner tribe on your phone contacts. Who would that be?
well, I mean, it would be remiss of me not to go somewhere political. Um, But I mean, I'd love to have Keir Starmer on speed dial or Rachel Reeves. They're
Tell
not
me
on
more
my.
about that.
I just think sometimes they need a dose of reality and no comms from SE1. Or SW, sorry, not SE1. SE1's all right. We need to move out the SW1 bubble and
Yeah.
just listen to people and listen to advice outside of their friends. And sometimes that's uncomfortable, but
Mm,
it needs to be done. And with the budgets next week, I don't know if it's going to be out there before then. But
yeah,
for
it
me,
probably will be. Yeah.
the paralysis in business, in life, is strangling so many people. And I feel like they don't understand that. Like not making business decisions, then that impacts people's work, which impacts people's home. We know that there's plenty of research there that when we're unstable, our I mean, feel financially unstable, our mental health declines, our relationships declines, and that's relationships with our kids, with our partners, with our friends, and we can't go out, and I feel like that's where we are. It's just we're struggling, and I don't
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
being heard.
Yeah, that's such an interesting choice of people. And and as you were saying that, I'm thinking, I feel like she's missed her calling as a politician somehow. In
Maybe
another
one,
life, I think she was a politician.
yeah, maybe one day, maybe one day. Door's not shut on that. Yeah, just needs to be able to deal with somebody who speaks their mind.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, Asil. Thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find you if they want to learn a bit more about you and what you do? Socials, website.
On LinkedIn, you can just type in my name, and if you want to follow me, or if you want to send an email or a message me, you can see me there, or you can get to my website, matt-pr.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Asil. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. Until next time, take care. Bye.
Thank you.